too.
Well, this morning we're going to be starting a new series, and this new series is called Summer Classics. And these are stories you may have heard with a message that you may have missed. And it's what's really neat about this series that we're going to be going through is that at the exact same time that we are going through this series, there are actually a couple other churches in their area that is also going to be going through the same series. They're going to be hearing the same sermons, not on the same week, but it's the same series with the same topics and the same characters. And it's like namely the churches are Village Church, where I've done my apprenticeship at, and also Church United, which is in the Stanton Mall. So this series we're going through this summer is going to be reaching a vast number of people. It's not just going to be us that's going to be going through this series. There's probably going to be around 500 people in the area that's going to be hearing these same sermons. It's like the point of this sermon series we're doing, the whole point of this series is to take classic Sunday school stories and hopefully try to find some brand new hidden truths in them, to try to find some hidden nuggets that like maybe we didn't know before. And it's like the whole reason being, the whole point of this is that a lot of times that's like, especially for us that may have grew up in church, that's like some of these stories we have heard dozens of times. We may have even heard these stories 100 times, so then they tend to lose their actual intended message. They tend to lose their power. Back when we were kids in Sunday school or back in Bible school, we may have learned the story of Samson, but the question is, do we really know the whole story of Samson? It's like we learned as a kid, we learned about Noah. It's like we learned how he built this ark. But it's like, do we really know the story of Noah and the ark? Do we really understand the true meaning of the story of Noah's ark? And it's like, did Noah actually really take 2 of every animal onto the ark? We will talk about that story in another week. But if you want to know the answer to that question, you can read the story of Noah's ark in the book of Genesis. The answer just may surprise you. See if you can find the number 7 in that story. Sometimes little kids' Sunday school stories aren't exactly theologically they aren't exactly correct. But with that said, over the next several weeks, we're going to be looking at the classic stories of Samson, Noah, Jonah, Abraham, and the story of Joseph. Is actually my friend Will's Kitchen, who's going to be coming here. He is going to be talking about the story of Joseph. He's actually preaching that sermon right now, well, he's probably done now, but he's actually preaching that sermon right now at Village Church, and he's going to bring us that message, I think, on July 21st. But it's like we're going to possibly go to more depending on time, but this morning I just want us to look at the story in the life of Samson. And if you grew up in church, you probably know the story of Samson. And it's like Samson is identified by his hair and his strength. Samson was a big, strong guy that had miraculous strength, and his strength come through his long hair. He was not allowed to cut his hair, and if he would cut his hair, he would lose his strength. That's what we grew up hearing about the story of Samson, right? But there's so much more to this story than just muscles and hair. There is so much more to his story. See, because hidden in the story of Samson is actually a picture of God's redemption. We see God's forgiveness played out in this story. And we see God's love. We actually see the gospel message in the story of Samson. So if you have your Bibles, turn to the book of Judges, chapter 13. but it's Judges chapter 13, and we're going to be reading verses 1 through 5, and then we're going to skip to read verse 24 and verse 25. And this is the story of the birth of Samson. How this whole story gets started. So there's the Judges chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, and then verses 24 through 25. And it says, and again, the children of Israel did cite, again, the children of Israel, they did evil in the sight of the Lord. And a lot of chapters in the Old Testament start with that. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines, it says, for 40 years. Now there was a certain man from Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren. That's like she had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, that indeed now you are barren and have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or any kind of similar drink. Thus, do not eat anything unclean, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and a razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. Thus he said, he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hands of the Philistines. And then just skip over real quick to verses 24 and verses 25. It says that so the woman bore a son, and that she called his name Samson. And said that this child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Manasseh and between Zorah and Eshtal. Just a little background real quick on the passage that we read on the birth of Samson. The first thing we see is that Samson's birth was a miracle in itself. It's just that his mother was barren. That's until she was visited by an angel and was told that she would have a son. That sounds familiar, that if you read the Bible and if you grew up in church, we have heard this same theme over and over throughout the Bible. So see, back in Genesis, we see an angel visit Abraham. That's like prophesied to him that his barren wife at her advanced age is going to bear a son. We see in the New Testament, we see John the Baptist's mother. She is visited by an angel. That's he says, you are going to give birth to a son. And so then we see in the story of Mary, who is the mother of Jesus. Although Mary wasn't barren, her story is actually a lot more miraculous. Mary was a virgin up until the point that the angel visited her, as he said, you will conceive and bear forth a son. It's like I can stop right there and preach a message on God using the hopeless, broken areas of our life to bring forth victory. But say, we'll have to do that another day. That's what see right now we see right off in these first part of these verses, we see that the mere birth of Samson was a miracle. And so we also see in these verses, we see that the angel prophesied to his mother. As I say, it said that Samson shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hands of the Philistines. What's interesting, though, is Israel did not finally overcome the Philistines. That's until long after Samson had died. Long after Samson had died. That's like Samson was only to begin this work of deliverance. And it's like King David, was the one that would eventually free Israel from the Philistines. So we see at the point of Samson's birth, we see that he is prophesied to be the deliverer of Israel, and it's like his birth was a miracle to start with. But if you look back in verse 5, it's like the very first sentence of verse 5 is where you will find the foundation, the bedrock of where I want to go this morning. It's like the first sentence of verse 5 says that, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. It says that no razor shall come upon his head, For this child shall be a Nazarite to God. Now, we talked about this Nazarite vow back on Mother's Day. We saw this same thing with the prophet Samuel. That's when the angel told her that she would have a son. We see too that Samuel took this Nazarite vow. We also see in the New Testament, we see John the Baptist take this Nazarite vow. It's like the Nazarite vow, I'm not going to flip to it right now, but it's laid out in the book of Numbers, chapter 6. And it's just real quick, the Nazarite vow in the Old Testament, it just basically states that you can't consume any wine or anything that comes off of a vine. It says that you can't cut your hair. And it says that you can't touch any dead bodies. That seems strange, but that's part of the Nazarite vow. There's no alcohol, you can't cut your hair, and you can't touch any dead bodies. Most of us could probably handle that last part of not handling dead bodies. But I mean, all in all, it seems like a pretty simple vow. I think Rodney's trying to live by it now with the hair and beard. But here's where here's why I want to say that Samson's story is a story of redemption. Because see, in Samson's life, that if you read it's the story of his life story, which is played out in chapters 13 through chapters 16. We only have 3 chapters that is dedicated to him. But if you read Samson's life story, you will read where Samson violated every single one of these vows. And it's like in this song. Samson's life, he violated every single one of these vows. As if you would read the entire book of Judges, you will see that Samson, in Samson's life, Samson had a real weak place in his heart for wine, and he had a real weak place for women. He was a womanizer, straight up. And it's like whenever Samson got into trouble, there was always 2 things involved. There was always wine and there was always women. That still seems like it's going on to today. But in Samson's life, whenever he got in trouble, it always evolved around wine and women. Now, that's not saying that women are bad, but the women that Samson was hanging around with wasn't the kind of women that you would have taken home to meet your mom, if you know what I mean. He was constantly having dealings with prostitutes from other countries. And that's like, after all, then if you would read his story, you would see where it was a woman that seduced him while he was drunk to find out the secret to his strength, which was cutting his hair. Once again, he basically violated all the Nazarite vows in one night. And it's like Samson was also a warrior. Samson was also a brave warrior for the nation of Israel. And so we see that Samson killed tons of people. He literally killed tons of people. Just in one story in chapter 15, we see where Samson kills over 1,000 men with a jawbone. That's just one fight. Samson kills 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. So to put it, so obviously you can say that he also touched a dead body. So right there, he has violated all of the Nazarite vows. It's like I wish that I could say that things turned out well for Samson at the end. That I wish I could say that he ended up doing great things for the Lord. I wish I could say that he grew an old man sitting on his rocking chair. It's like watching his grandkids play. But the truth is, he didn't. Samson's end was not very glamorous. His death was not what you want to call honorable. But it's in the midst of all of this, God was still able to use Samson. God was still able to use him, just not in the way that Samson probably wanted. See, because at the point of Samson's death, Samson's had been captured. His eyes had been gouged out. And it's like I was telling Elizabeth that like I Googled the word gouge this week. It's like simply so I would know how to spell it. But it's like I see where to gouge something out is synonymous with the act of scooping something, like a scoop of ice cream. So you could just picture Samson's eyes being gouged out meant that they literally, and it's like they probably used a knife and they literally dug them out and scooped them out. And it's like he died as a slave to his mortal enemy, the Philistines. Well, the first part of the chapter said that he was supposed to be the deliverer from the Philistines, but yet we see him dying as a slave to the Philistines with his eyes literally popped out of his head. There's no other way to put it. But it's in the midst of his head being shaved, in the midst of his eyes being gouged out, in the midst of him living as a slave to his arch enemy with the Philistines, something miraculous actually did happen. Something very powerful actually happened. And it is something so small that it is very easy to overlook and it's very easy to miss. And if you've ever read through the book of Judges, and if you've ever read through the 3 chapters of the life of Samson, chances are that's like when you read this verse, you probably overlooked it, and as you kept on reading, and it's like you didn't catch it. It's like, here's where I want to uncover a hidden truth, a hidden nugget of gold this morning. Look at Judges chapter 16, verse 22. Judges chapter 16, verse 22. Because see, at the point of this verse, his eyes have been gouged out, his head has been shaved, all his strength is gone, and as he is living as a slave, basically he was turning a stone crushing grain for his enemy. And so this is where we get in verse 22. But actually verse 21 says, Then the Philistines took him. It says that they put out his eyes, and they brought him down to Gaza. It says that they bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. Verse 22. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. That is a hidden verse. That's to catch that. It says that the hair on his head began to grow back. Think about it. Samson's hair means his strength. And it's like Samson's hair comes back, his strength comes back. Let's just think about that. The hair on his head began to grow back. Now, it's important for me to point out that Samson's strength didn't really come from his hair, did it? Samson's hair was merely just a sign, it was just a symbol of his strength. Samson's strength came from God. His strength was a miracle from God. He was simply empowered by God. But it's like, here's the neat thing this morning. With his hair growing back, with like Samson's hair growing back, that shows that God wasn't done using Samson yet. That shows to us that God wasn't done with him. That shows to us that God had not given up on Samson yet. Even though he had violated all the vows, his head was shaved, his eyes were gouged out. He was living as a slave to his mortal enemies. His hair started to grow back, which meant that God had not given up on him quite yet. And here's the beautiful parallel for us this morning. Here's where this story can touch us this morning. God isn't through with you yet either. God still wants to use you. God still wants to use me. God still wants to use you in spite of your past. God can still use you in spite of whatever you may have done just last night. God still hasn't given up on you yet. God can and still uses you, and God still wants to use you. Samson broke every single Nazarite vow that there was. He broke every rule in the book and did some. Samson had his eyes gouged out. Samson was living as a slave. But God wasn't done with him quite yet. Real quick, let's finish his story. And there's in Judges chapter 16, verses 28 through verse 30. Let's just see how Samson's life ends. So verse 28 says, Then Samson called out to the Lord, saying, Oh Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray. Just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes. And so verse 29 says that Samson took hold of the two middle pillars which supported the temple, and so he braced himself against them, one on his right and the other on his left. Then Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. It says that he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the Lord's, and it fell on all the people that were in it, so that the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed during his entire life. Samson's life is a story of redemption. Samson's life is a picture of God's forgiveness. It is a picture of God's love. His life is a picture of the gospel itself. Because see, like Samson, we are all slaves to something. Some of us may be a slave to our passions and lusts like Samson. Some of us may be a slave to our work or our money. Some of us may be a slave to fear, depression, or your past, or maybe even your present. And so the truth is, being a slave to anything, it tends to blinding us from what God wants to do in our lives, blinding us from what God wants to work in our lives. Living as any kind of slavery is like having our eyes gouged out. And it's not until we do what Samson did, and it's lift our eyes and just simply say, Remember me, Lord. Father, remember me. And it's at that point, like when we do that, our strength will start to return. Our hair will begin to grow back. Maybe I should try this. But as our hair will begin to grow back, and so even if you think you have reached the end, and even if you think you've hit rock bottom, and it's like you are at the point of no return, please let Samson's story remind you that God is not done with you yet. God still has a plan for you. It's like all of this is because of the redemption that we now find in Jesus Christ. We are now free to be, and it's because of what Jesus Christ did on the cross. That's what let us close with prayer this morning. Dear God, we just